Oh yeah, that's the spice. What's going on, everybody? A little bit later than I wanted to go live, so I gotta do this in a timely fashion. It's a work night. Happy, comfy Sunday evening. Hope everyone had a good weekend. December, what is it, 18th, coming up on Christmas. Real fast, real fast. So that's nice. I want to set some things straight regarding Elon Musk. Elon Musk, you know the way this goes. I make a single post about Elon Musk, right? And it's not anyone's fault. This is just the fact that he's a polarizing figure. I post anything about Elon Musk, doesn't matter what it is. I get a few different types of people in the comments, right? In the replies. One group down talks me, right? I didn't know you were an Elon fan, dude. I didn't know you were such a big fan of Elon, dude. And then there's another group that is just so unreasonably skeptical of him. Like, there's no in between with Elon Musk, right? There's no it's all black or white, apparently. And that's what I really wanted to set the record straight on when it comes to Elon Musk. He's not a character that's going to be as simple to define as good or evil, right? And I mean, that basically goes for just about everything in life, and it goes for just about everybody in life. Evil people can commit acts of positivity, acts that are beneficial overall to humanity, while also still being evil. Good people can commit acts of evil despite being overwhelmingly good. And yet, when it comes to Elon Musk, people can't seem to make their minds up. People, or rather, they have their minds up, but they have their minds made up too quick. For example, I think perhaps that regardless of the role Elon Musk is playing, and I'm going to tell you the role he's playing, we're going to be talking about technocracy, we're going to be talking about the history of Elon Musk and the tenets of technocracy, the tenets of transhumanism, and the few pieces of the writings that the elite have laid out so plainly for us over the last century about what a future technocratic state looks like, and and what Elon's role in rolling that out will be. But I apologize, guys, but even if Elon Musk is playing a particular role in all of this, if he does end up comprehensively eradicating, let's say, predators from Twitter, I think that's a good thing. My last video, right, covered Twitter File 6, a very important video, so go ahead and take a look at that video if you missed it or if you're not familiar with what Twitter Files Part 6 included, but it revealed the very close connections between the FBI and Twitter, and not to mention the FBI essentially has a major role at Twitter in that they are so intertwined that the FBI is sending tweets to Twitter themselves to have flagged for policy violations, right? It's not even Twitter that's doing this alone. It's that they're being helped by entities like the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, who, by the way, is in partner partnership with various NGOs and think tanks, right? The real shakers and movers, the people that transcend the government in many ways. And by the way, guys, I did want to make a quick correction too. In my last video, when we did cover Twitter File 6, do you remember that one segment where the guy got flagged or suspended for civic misinformation because he told Republicans to go out and vote? I'm such an idiot. I realized the reason they flagged that guy is because they were telling people to go out and vote on the wrong day, and I didn't notice that because I was flipping out. I was baffled. I was like, yo, they flagged this for civic misinformation. But apparently the reason they did is because he was telling Republicans to go out and vote when it wasn't election day. Now, I'm not saying that suddenly makes it okay that they flagged it for misinformation. Just wanted to, I'm trying to remain, keep my integrity, my journalistic integrity intact. So before we get going, guys, if you would, I'd really appreciate it if you go ahead and support the show. You can do so primarily by hitting the thumbs up. I do appreciate for, all of you that are hanging out with me right now. Did I go live on Rockfin? I did go live on Rockfin. Thank the Lord, right? Like this video, hit the thumbs up for me. Every thumbs up assists in getting this video visible to those that need to see it. Share this video, send it to your friends, send it to your family, whatever it might be. And of course, for those that wish to monetarily support me, you can do so. You can do that with PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. All the links are in the description. I did want to discuss before we really get into this, guys, because we're going to go deep. It's not just in some basic bitch Elon Musk 101 info. We're going to go, as deep as we can in a short period of time on the history of technocracy and what that future looks like, because I'm convinced that this is the most likely timeline that we will be entering. Not to be a cynic, there's always a way to turn this around. There is a way to steer this ship from disaster. It's just a matter of if humanity cares enough in the present to do that or not, to take the power back, right? There was one more thing I wanted to mention, though. I really don't like this fucking thing that he did on Twitter. It's bullshit. So I think I retweeted it. If you want to follow me on Twitter or the official Memory Hold account, it's not run by me. Someone else made this account to cover all the Memory Hold news and updates. Follow me on Twitter. So that's Memory Hold News, at Memory Hold News. All right, so let me I'll show you what he did. It's fucking weird. Oh, and by the way, who's he hanging out with at the World Cup? Someone sent that over in the Telegram chat. Let's take a look at this. We got Elon Musk, savior of free speech, right? Savior of free speech. He took over Twitter out of the goodness of his own heart. Well, here he is hanging with Jared Kushner. What do you think those two fucking get up to, man, together? Are you kidding me? We got Jared Kushner of 666 whatever Ave. And I'm not even going to get into the rest of the shady shit that dude's up to. So fucking sketchy, man. So Elon's hanging with him, but that's not exactly what I'm referencing. Look at this policy change, guys. Is this the free speech bastion that you would hope for under Elon Musk, despite what he revealed to the public via the Twitter files? Take a look. Promotion of alternative social platforms policy. Here's what violates the policy. At both the tweet level and the account level, we will remove any free promotion of prohibited third-party social media platforms, such as linking out, using URLs, to any of the below platforms on Twitter. The prohibited platforms are Facebook, Instagram, Mastodon, Truth Social, etc. So that means, guys, if I go to make a tweet saying, go check out this montage I just made on Instagram, which I usually would do, apparently that's worthy of suspension, right? And here's their examples. Check out my profile on Facebook. That's against the rules. Follow me. Here's my username on Instagram. Against the rules, right? Accounts that are used for the main purpose of promoting content on another social platform may be suspended. Guys, it goes so far as to basically say that the link tree stuff, like those types of links, link trees, if you put those in your bio, you're technically violating Twitter's policies. So that, I have no idea what the usage of that would be, but I don't see a bastion of free speech here, in other words. You get what I'm saying? I don't see why would this put Twitter in an advantageous position when it comes to competition. You're shutting out competition in a way, right? You're putting up digital walls, digital barriers between Twitter as a platform and access to other URLs. And we've seen this happen before with the inaccessibility of New York Post's Hunter Biden article, we saw the inaccessibility of, say, BitChute, right? When you click a BitChute link on Twitter, you're prompted with a page that says this might be a dangerous website. Are you sure you wish to proceed? As opposed to just clicking the link and going right to it. Now, for people that are uninitiated or just generally they don't know about any of this stuff, they might actually look at that page and get scared. Oh my God, my computer might get a virus, and they'll click out, right? They have no idea what BitChute is, and they'll just go on with their day. So these are sneaky, clever ways to algorithmically, digitally, technologically sever the various avenues to different content, different pieces of information, right? I really don't like that Elon did this. And there's a few other things that he did too, where I guess he banned another or suspended another journalist recently. I forget her name, Taylor Lorenz. I didn't like her. I mean, she doxed a lot of people and shit like that. He also banned the guy that was monitoring his plane, which, like, I'm sorry, man. I understand the whole rhetoric of, like, he threatened my family or some shit, but, like, it's publicly available information, right? I mean, that's what this channel is. I don't know where I fall on that. I'm not exactly sure of the details of exactly what the threats entailed or whatever, but I find it strange that, like, you know, that guy's been up to reading flight data forever, you know? I can go access flight data right now. If I wanted to access Elon Musk's flight radar data right now, I could do so, right? But he banned the person that had been doing so successfully for so long because apparently someone else other than him threatened the life of his family. Now, I understand Elon might be lashing out as a father, right? Something like that. That primal instinct to absolutely destroy anything that threatens your family or your children. But come on, man, I don't like that. I don't like I said, guys, you got to be very careful. I know it's selfishly satisfying to see your enemies, your critics, people that celebrated your banning in the past. It's selfishly satisfying to feel a little tickle, right? Of saying, yeah, you got a taste of your own medicine. But like I said, at the end of it, when it's all said and done, we're left with a graveyard, right? Of just the approved, trademarked, corporate approved, authoritative sources approved fluffernutter nonsense with all the good stuff, the edgy takes, the actual hot takes, silenced, right? Gone. Moved to other platforms, banished from the, what do they call it? Oh yeah, the digital town square. Well, under Elon, I will say there has been some good changes. I'm not going to say that the Twitter files exposure weren't something good, even if they aren't the biggest in the world. That's objectively good. Pedophile eradication on the platform, objectively good. Banning journalists, banning people that use public info to track your plane in live time, kinda sketchy. So guys, with all of that said, please like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. If you aren't already, I'm sure you are, but if you aren't, go ahead and do it. Make a free account for Rockfin, rockfin.com/memoryhold, bitchute.com/memoryhold. YouTube here only has a portion of my videos, 20% or less. All the good stuff, the real spicy stuff, goes on Rockfin and BitChute. I've already had to remove about 2 or 3 videos from YouTube for a variety of reasons. A privacy complaint for one, I forget the other reason for the other. It's just not worth it, right? So I got to be careful here on YouTube. If you're staying on YouTube and only use YouTube, you're missing out on a lot of other content, right? So help me out on the alternative platforms as well, because if you do, you'll be helping yourself out. So I want to talk about technocracy and its history, right? Because what does it exactly mean to have someone like Elon Musk at the helm of Twitter, the narrative machine, the culture creator, the trend setter? What does it mean to have a transhumanist like Elon Musk at the helm of a technological powerhouse like Twitter? Well, it would help to understand first what technocracy is and why it is important to understand. So I found a clip that I'm just going to play, be a little bit more entertaining than me ranting for an hour about it. So I'm going to play a clip first and then rant for 50 minutes about it.
Democracy is going through a difficult time. Disillusion with politics is rife. Is it time for a different or hybrid system? Can we be ruled by technocrats, and do they really know best? Democracy has lost momentum. Dramatic declines have been seen in every region of the world. Democracy watchdog Freedom House says 2017 was the 12th consecutive year of the downturn. 71 countries went backwards, more than double those that made any gains. Countries that a decade ago seemed like promising success stories, critics now say are sliding into authoritarian rule. In 2015, Myanmar was being celebrated for its transition towards democracy. But 2017 saw the renewed persecution of the Rohingya Muslim minority and the repression of journalists. And the land of the free is retreating from its traditional role as a democratic champion.
We saw a concerted effort by Russians to interfere with the 2016 presidential election. We have been quite concerned about the large number of lies and misstatements that have been made by the president and documented by independent fact checkers. There's also been corruption, the mixing of business and public interests.
Well, that's kind of important, right? Fact checking, the mixture of public and private interests. We'll get to that.
Technocracy advocates argue the democratic system is unprofessional, overly politicized, corrupt, and ineffective.
Okay.
A society managed by scientists and engineers would be more rational and productive. Singaporeans handed rule of their society to a one-party technocracy, and it's an economic powerhouse with the second busiest port and the third highest per capita income in the world.
Right, but doesn't Singapore have like a crazy fucking surveillance system as well, you know?
Ukraine's outgoing economy minister called Technocracy the only hope for lasting change, 2 years after the 2014 revolution. People were growing tired of the slow pace of reform.
And guys, let's remember that Ukraine is actually the most technologically digital-friendly country in the world. They're the first one that... I covered it on a BitChute video a while back. You're going to want to check this out. It's... I wish I could remember what it was called. But it has to do with the digital firewall they put up against Russia, right? Removing different Russian apps from the App Store, their attack on Russian-based news media agencies, right, in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. They have digital ID systems, government digital ID systems, things like that, implemented, fully fledged, fully rolled out in Ukraine, right? Fully accessible in one centralized location. This is putting it very lightly. You're going to have to go check out that video on BitChute. It's the one that starts with the hackable animals speech. I just wish I made so many videos, I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, so it's worth noting that it's no surprise that Ukraine believes that, technocracy is the future, being as they're the country that has made the most strides towards the evolution and rolling out of a digital identification system. All government paperwork is digitized. There's a government app that can be used on the phone. So, your traffic citations, your personal driver's license, your medical, things like that are all bundled into one unit, right? That we know is going to happen here. Immunity passports, vaccine records, things like that, as well as your payment, credit cards, debit cards, right? You can hold that on your iPhone. And we know that, not long after COVID began, we saw companies like Apple, Samsung, and a variety of other powerhouse corporations in the tech game developing a means for a centralized app that can, coordinate all these various... Right now, the data is sort of all over the place, right? Some are digitized, others are not, right? They want a place where they can hold your driver's license, your vaccine, immunity data, things like that, all in a singular place. And I'm just trying to say that Ukraine is actually the most far along with that, right? And we're lagging a little bit behind, but make no mistake, it's coming fast. And with people like Elon Musk at the helm of a culture creator, a narrative machine like Twitter, and him being a transhumanist, regardless of how much he shit posts and pretends to be one of us, he is indeed playing a role. At least that's my personal opinion. And it is very quickly looking like I can quickly see how this can turn very swiftly into a social credit type system under his watch, one that is closely tied to your physical actual identity, right? Right now, we enjoy a level of anonymity on the internet, which is great, and I want it to stay that way, but we do know an internet identification system is coming. Anonymity will be stripped from the internet under the guise of, preventing hate speech, preventing terrorism, preventing pollution to your information environment, maintaining the integrity of the election systems and democracy. Of course, we got to stop those national security threats, aka did the virus come from a lab or not? got to get rid of that, tie everything to a personal ID system. I'm not going to say Elon Musk is going to spearhead that, but I guarantee you there's going to be strides made forward towards something like that, right, under Elon Musk. And we're already seeing his embracing and his willingness to ban journalists for small things, right, seemingly small things. And he's very quick to do so, right? We don't want to engage in petty revenge, tit for tat, right?
I think we really need to use this opportunity to bring in a completely different, set of people with a completely different mindset.
In 2011, both Rome and Athens installed prime ministers with expertise in economics and finance to drive through tough austerity measures. Technocracy does have its proponents. Pew Research shows that while there's a global preference for representative democracy, the next best option is a system where experts, not elected politicians, call the shots.
Right. Okay, so where have we heard that before? What future are we kind of like, or what are we living in presently, right? We're living in the world where authoritative sources are king. We have collectivized and centralized our digital infrastructure, our internet landscape in such a way where the Wild West days are over, everything is monitored in real time and actually taken care of in live time, very quick to ban people, very quick to detect things when you break the rules, where back only just a few years ago you were pretty able to slip through the algorithmic cracks, so to speak, and get away with things. Eventually that will not be the case. Eventually when you are banned from a platform, you will be banned from that platform forever. You go to make an alt account, you will not be able to do so even before the internet ID comes. Right now we could still make shell accounts, we can still evade bans, which I have never done. I've never done that. But in the future, that's going to be a thing of the past where you'll be permanently iced out from these digital town squares forever. So that's a little bit on technocracy and the authoritative being run scientifically by the experts. Well, that's kind of where we're headed now. Look how quickly it happened when it came to COVID, guys. Authoritative sources were the only thing allowed to persist. Anything alternative or running counter to authoritative sources were banned, wiped out, silenced. And for those of you that are saying, yeah, this is obvious, we know that, what I'm getting at here is, yeah, I know we know that. What I'm saying is how quickly it fucking happened. As recent as 2015 or even 2016, that wasn't the case. It was only after the election of Trump, the proliferation of fake news, or rather the coining of the term fake news, that this all began to happen. So you can already see elements of a society being run by experts and technicians coming into form by the very fact that we can't question the mainstream narrative. Everything you look up is algorithmically prioritized to be the most visible. The authoritative sources are always the most visible. Good luck trying to find the average person's blog anymore, their own individual opinions or thoughts on climate change. Perhaps you'd like to read a particularly intelligent individual's opinions and ramblings about climate change just because it's entertaining and informative, but you can't do that anymore unless you jump through hoops to find a link to those websites, right? It used to be a plethora and abundance of this type of shit on the front page of Google. And don't get me wrong, some level of algorithmic prioritization is nice, right? You know, you put Wikipedia up at the top if you're trying to look someone up, right? It gives you like those, like that's, bios, personal information on celebrities, politicians, like that's where it's good, right? This algorithmic fuckery. But when you prioritize certain things to show up at the top of a search query, and suppress things or prevent things from not showing up at all, that's where you get bad. And that's the world that we're living in, where everything not written or stated by experts, the authoritative sources, well, you're iced out. So I want to talk about a little bit of the history of technocracy, because there was actually a movement, an organization in the 1930s called Technocracy Incorporated, right? And what were their goals? What did they want for the world? Well, they wanted exactly what we just saw in that video. A scientifically engineered, designed, and maintained society that is run by experts. A small elite managerial class is installed to run and manage the affairs of all of mankind through the usage of technology that monitors things like natural resources, things like population levels, things like temperature levels, all of that in live time, right? And self-adjusts itself, right? So it takes in that data and then automatically makes adjustments to itself to compensate for whatever that data is. For example, someone might envision, I forget what book this is from, I think it was The Impact of Science on Society by Bertrand Russell. They talked about the idea of centralizing the food system and using this AI technology, this crazy advanced technology that manages the affairs of all of mankind, overseen by this elite, small group of elite managers who, by the way, the Technocracy Incorporated of the 30s said we would need about 100 engineers and experts to oversee all of this, right? Just 100 for the billions of us on the planet. That would be who's in charge. But Bertrand Russell in Impact of Science on Society, I have a few analyses and summary videos over on Rockfin and BitChute. He talked about an example where this centralized system might need to take population into consideration. We can't overstep the bounds of a certain population threshold. If we go too far over that, we can't sustain ourselves, but we don't want to drop below it either. So, if a particular region of the world transcends that population level, Bertrand Russell said, a future with a centralized core system managing human affairs might say, okay, well, we are not going to send you or provide you enough food, right, until you level out your population, right? So the AI machine centralization system detected, hey, you guys broke the rules. You're over the mandatory minimum population level, mandatory maximum population level. We're going to deprive you of food until you get your act together. Right now, that was just his writing, his speculation of the future, how something like that, when it comes to population management, might look, right? But okay, so Technocracy Incorporated, 1930s. Technocracy Incorporated was founded in New York City in 1933 as an educational and research organization promoting a radical restructuring of political, social, and economic life in Canada and United States. Listen very carefully to see how familiar all of this is. 1933, Technocracy Incorporated is founded. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because right now we're in the present with Elon Musk, transhumanist, at the helm of the biggest social media company that by far has the most influence, almost the most influence on our perception. This is relevant. And we're going to end the video back at the present with Elon, right? Now, this wasn't a political organization. In fact, they went so far as to ban people that had political affiliations from becoming members of their Technocracy organization because they're against that. They want to tear down the old system, tear down the old world, right? They were looking for radical, revolutionizing, political, social, and economic life entirely. In both the United States and Canada. That was their sort of their focus, right? There was a few, they had a grand vision, of course. Some of that vision included things like no politicians, business people, money, or income inequality. They wanted to get rid of all of that, right? We don't want democratic government. We don't want a Marxist, socialistic, communist government. We don't want fascism or an authoritarian government. All we know that we want is to get rid of the old system, get rid of politicians, get rid of business people, and overall eradicate income inequality, right? Which, by the way, these were all aspects of what the technocrats or the Technocracy Incorporated people called the price system. The price system. The price system had to go. That's the primary tenet of the old world, according to Technocracy Incorporated, that needed to go. The only reason there is income inequality and people left without food, water, and the general ability to live is because of what they called the price system, and that needed to go, and they were going to get rid of it. There would be no US or Canada. This is very important. According to Technocracy Incorporated, there would be no United States as a country. There would be no Canada as a country. The United States and Canada would be a single continent, just without borders. Does that sound familiar yet? How long has that one been in the works for? How long has that theory been floating around? Do you remember the Bush days where people thought George W. Bush was going to combine the US and Canada? Well, where do you think these ideas come from? They've existed since the 30s. So Technocracy Incorporated says, yeah, United States isn't going to be a country anymore. Canada isn't going to be a country anymore. Well, what's it going to be then? Well, They'd be combined and absorbed into one single giant landmass, and they would call it the Technate. The Technate. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, Technate, right? Yeah, so no US, no Canada, no more countries, just the Technate. Now remember, this is limited to US and Canada, but now technology it has advanced to such a degree where we're looking at a global revolution now. And how's the sovereign state doing right now? How do you guys think the sovereign state is looking right now? Not looking too good, aren't they? They're made to look like little bitches compared to the likes of the World Economic Forum, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group. The real power system, the real power structure transcends government. I've already tried to drill that into your head, right? We're at that stage now where politicians are really just figureheads, and they have been for a long time. I'm not saying otherwise, but I'm saying it's now more obvious than ever. We're at that stage where they're coming into the light, coming out of the shadows and announcing themselves. We're here. We're going to stay here. And you're stuck with us from here on out, right? So the eradication of sovereign nation states has been written extensively about. Bertrand Russell wrote about it, Impact of Science on Society. H.G. Wells wrote about it heavily. Look at my Open Conspiracy analysis. Look at my New World Order, his book Analysis, right? These are very illuminating, right? If you read these books, you understand fully what the plans are going to be. Klaus Schwab mentions the same thing. And he goes further and says, like, the reason that sovereign nation states need to be, like, not disbanded, but, like, nationalism needs to be reined in, right? We can't have you proud of your country, proud of your heritage, proud of your countrymen, because soon there is going to be no countries to be proud of. We're all going to be global citizens with a global mind and a global perspective towards the future. Always focused on progress, always. Doesn't matter what the progress is headed towards, doesn't matter the direction in which you take those strides forward, so long as they're forward, right? And that's progress. Progress is always good. Progress is always positive. Progress never yields things like gain-of-function research or, say, the nuclear bomb. Progress is always good. Remember that. So anyway, dissolution of sovereign nation states, simultaneous increase in the partnership and coordination between the public and the private sector, which is where Klaus Schwab, your boy, comes in. How are we ever going to combat these existential threats? Pandemic, potential asteroid impact, UFOs, they're priming us for that, right? Climate change, water, food shortages, things like that. How can we ever combat these global problems on a global scale if we're thinking so small as individual countries and just looking out for each other? If we don't all look out for the collective world, we're going to all bring each other down. That's what Klaus Schwab says. So we need to coordinate globally with one another. And sometimes governments can't do that, right? Sometimes governments can't cooperate with each other. Well, that's China. China's our enemy right now. That's a foreign enemy right now. Russia's a bad guy, right? We can't talk. This is where the corporations come in. This is where the think tanks come in and the NGOs. They transcend government in every way possible. Why is that? Well, what did the first book, the first global revolution by the Club of Rome, World Economic Forum's precursor, say? Politicians and governments are too harnessed, too restrained by term limits, by their myopic perspectives on life, by their own ambition and greed and own selfish pursuits within the government. AKA, you can never handle genuine global existential threats if you're dealing with 4-year, 8-year term limits, right? You need people that are outside of the government, that are not voted in, that do not have to change their behavior based on their constituents and their vote for you. You're not elected. You have infinite term limit, and you have the ability to work towards a solidified agenda or objective for the entirety of your life until you have another son or another daughter, and she picks up where you left off, and her son or daughter picks up where they left off, and it slowly, I can't say snowballing because snowballing is fast, but gradually inches toward that future that they wish so bad to bring into fruition. And what is this term called? Quiz time. What's the term called? Take your time, right, to reach your objective, to reach your goals. I'll give you a second. I'll give you a hint too. You know, the wolf in sheep's clothing logo? Whose logo is that? Right? The Fabian socialists, right? Back to the 1880s, talking about gradually subverting the old world ideals and traditions by infiltrating all sectors of society and subverting them from the inside slowly, right? So as not to give yourself away until eventually you look around you and there's not a single person that has a different mindset from you. That's literally what the Fabian socialists and the driving thought leaders behind that movement all the way back then, guys, put on paper and straight up said on the record, right? Gradualism is the word. Let's continue. Now, in the Technate, remember the combined United States and Canada, in the Technate, all needs would be taken care of, all food and resources distributed equally to everybody. How utopian. Joshua Haldeman was a leader of Technocracy Incorporated. Joshua Haldeman, he was a leader of Technocracy Incorporated from 1936 to 1941. Now, in 1940, Haldeman appeared in court on 2 charges under the Defense of Canada Act. Basically, what happened was Canada, this was a wartime situation. It was 1940. We have World War II on the cusp. And Canada, through the Defense Canada Act, deemed them a subversive anti-war group and essentially banned them a few years before 1940. And eventually, I guess they kept operating. So Joshua Haldeman, who led the group for a few years, ended up being arrested or charged for that. So his offense was being a member, of Technocracy Incorporated, right? Now, Howard Scott was another main character in this Technocracy Incorporated group. Well, he was the founder of Technocracy Incorporated, who, by the way, guys, they still have a website to this day. You can go visit that if you're interested. Yeah, so Howard Scott is the founder of Technocracy Incorporated, and check this out. He gave a speech to an American audience in 1963, and he's quoted as saying the following, quote, "As far as technocracy's ideas are concerned, we're so far left that we make communism look bourgeoisie," right? Which is interesting. It's an interesting quote, right? So here we have the founder of Technocracy. Here they are saying that, we're not Marxist, we're not socialist, we're not fascist, we're just whatever. And it's widely, when historians that really have studied transhumanism and this slow march towards a transhumanistic future, they've said that it's not exactly easy to characterize the exact belief system of Technocracy Incorporated, but it's little quotes like that assist us in doing so, right? In general, they were anti-capitalist and anti-democratic, but they weren't fascists. They were anti-government, but they were not libertarian. They weren't Marxist, but they aimed for sweeping reforms to social and economic frameworks, which is what Marxists do. Now, they're not Marxists, they're not communists, but we want to radically transform society and the economy, right? So it's kind of, apparently, they said they rejected all of those ideologies on a single basis. Why would you reject these ideologies? What was the main reason? Because science and technology was not the center of these attempts at sparking revolution, both physical and mental. According to Technocracy Incorporated, none of them placed the proper amount of significance on science and technology that Technocracy Incorporated believed would be leading them into the future, right? You have to remember that this was after the Great Depression, okay, where people were increasingly becoming concerned with automation and generally machines taking their jobs. So at this time, this period of time, this 1930s period of time, people were actually embracing technocracy. Not going to say that it was like this hugely popular thing, but it was preferable to a lot of people that lost their entire livelihoods, that just went through something like the Great Depression and was not far off from another massive global war. They were sick and tired of it, right? And unsure of what the future held for them and whether they're going to be able to sustain themselves when all of these machines can produce an abundance that human beings could not. So needless to say, technocracy in a way was appealing to many people. And don't get me wrong, it's appealing still to this day, but with the proper education and the proper access to information about transhumanism and technocracy, you see that it's full of fluff, full of hot air, and inevitably, in my opinion, doomed to fail. Fail if you're one of us. If you're one of them, it's considered success. I see no future where a technocracy would not devolve into full-on fascism, full-on authoritarianism, especially being as the aristocrats of the future society will be those with technological prowess and expertise, the tech gurus, the tech giants, the engineers, things along those lines. So let's continue. Remember, guys, hit the thumbs up for me. I'd really appreciate that. It helps me out a lot. We're looking good on the thumbs. Got a decent amount of you in here for a Sunday evening, but let's get it up higher. Get this video visible. Let's get some new people in here. I appreciate you guys. Remember, link trees in the description below. Oh, I added a few things to the link tree, by the way, guys. All the various appearances I've done on other podcasts and things like that, I'm starting to put them all in the link tree. Same thing with my documentaries, because I know a few of you reported it was difficult to find Source Code Demons and some of the other ones. Go to the link tree, links in the description, bookmark that shit. I'm adding all my podcast appearances from, various podcasts, Tinfoil Hat Podcast, David Whitehead, Truth Warrior Show, Meet Me for Coffee, all that stuff, right? As well as my documentaries there too. So there you go. Those are the orders. Those are the captain's orders. So yeah, they rejected all of those ideologies because science and technology was not put at the center of it. And they said it's all fruitless, that it's all pointless. Because we know that where we're headed to the future is going to be extremely disruptive. Technology is going to disrupt society in a way that is unprecedented. And they basically said, what's the point of trying to build a future on a framework, on a foundation, whether it's Marxist, whether it's socialist, whether it's fascist, whatever? Why build a framework on one of those ideologies or a foundation on one of those ideologies when technology is going to obliterate it all and start us, cause us to have to start all over again, right? That's what they're saying. We need to start building now with a technological framework and run society with technological expertise. Democracy, one of their main hangups with democracy was the fact that it allowed too many incompetent people to be elected into government, right? And I agree with that, actually, right? That doesn't eliminate the rest of the good reasons, the good things about democracy. But it does result in a lot of dum-dums getting in there, done it. Anyway, here's a picture of Howard Scott. You can see Technocracy right there. Have you investigated Technocracy's design for America? Technocracy's design for a new America, I bet that says. Okay, continuing. Okay, so quote, he went on to say, quote, under the Technate, we would be responsible for the health and well-being of every human being, said Howard Scott, the man on your screen. Now, here, the general plan of Technocracy Incorporated was as follows. Remember the price system. I told you about the price system, our current monetary system. They believed that the price system was to blame for essentially every ill in America, namely income inequality and those that go without food, without the resources needed to live a enriching life. Well, to Technocracy Incorporated, that was because of the price system, and the price system has to go. How do we get rid of that? And that was their plan, replace the price system of the old world with a system based on energy. With a system based on energy. Now that is kind of curious, right? They undertook a massive program in the 1920s, and they called it the Energy Survey of North America. And basically what they wanted to do was they sought to establish a general idea, or a value rather, for all the goods and services produced on the continent, rather than by doing it by measuring how much labor they expended, or how much money was spent. But instead on the amount of energy used to produce them. So one more time. They conducted this energy survey of North America in the 1920s, and they sought to establish a volume for all the goods and services, or value for all the goods and services produced on the continent, not by measuring how much labor was expended or how much money was spent, but on the amount of energy used to produce them. They divided the total amount of energy used by the number of citizens in the Technate over 25 and issue each citizen an equal number of energy certificates. This was going to be their currency, energy certificates, based on the value of how much energy the average person over the age of 25 in the Technate, this new country that combines the US and Canada, on average. Every purchase then would deduct your total number of energy credits. Now, of course, it's probably far more complex than that. That's just the summary. Now, thing about this I thought was kind of interesting. So Howard Scott, the man on your screen here, he loved hosting these massive spectacles, right? And he called them symbolizations. Howard Scott loved holding what he called symbolizations. Actually, what's on your screen right now is one of those symbolizations, I believe. These massive speeches and organizations, these massive spectacles that would be crazy to watch, where the number of the technocrats were huge. They would wear these certain types of garb. Here, I'll read it like this, right? The largest, they were basically shows of force. That's a good way of putting it. Shows of force. And Howard Scott was very preoccupied with showing that, yes, technocracy is a force to be reckoned with, right? Like I said, it's not like the majority of people wanted it all the way back then. And by the way, they didn't have adequate levels of technological advancement to even do what they wanted. But they certainly laid the fucking framework, I'll tell you that much. But anyway, they wanted to let the world know that we're here, we're on the scene, we're not going anywhere, and we're not to be fucked with, right? And that's what he did. The largest symbolization was in 1947. A motorcade of hundreds of cars drove up to British Columbia from down the coast, where Howard Scott then gave a speech to 5,000 people at the Vancouver Forum. Now, here's where I couldn't help but laugh at this part, because remember, the Technocracy Incorporated, these people said, we're not fascist, we're not communist, we'll be in charge of making everyone happy, nobody will go without, there will be no inequality, there will be no this, all that utopian bullshit, tech guru, tech dweeb utopian bullshit. But during these symbolizations, what did they wear? They donned oddly militaristic styles and aesthetics. So they all wore these gray suits. They looked straight out of the military, right? Military men. All of their cars were painted a uniform gray. And they greeted each other with salutes. Like optically, that doesn't really help. Like it's just so fucking funny to see that all the years down the line here in the present. Like, because that's exactly what we'd expect from a bunch of tech dweebs that want to manage the affairs of mankind using technology from a centralized elite managerial class of fucking... It's exactly what you'd expect. And it's so funny because it's almost metaphorical or symbolic. Their drab gray dress, their drab gray clothes is kind of representative of the drab, gloomy, sterile future they wish to create via the standardization of man through the use of technology. Novelty, unique differences, all gone, because humanity has been standardized on the emotional, spiritual, physical, and informational level, right? We're standardizing education. We're standardizing people's belief systems more and more. There are less variety of beliefs. More people are being crowded and herded into urban shitholes, urban sprawls, cities that will one day, according to the World Economic Forum, become mega cities, megalopolises, which really just mirrors the exact writings of Jacques Attali, the French Henry Kissinger, they called him. Jacques Attali said the future of humanity, after they make living off the land unsustainable, after they make farming, your own food, and farmers' operations in general unsustainable, everyone will be herded into these cities, increasingly cramped spaces, living spaces, increasingly fleeting romantic interests. There's not going to be a lot of mommies or daddies, just single parents with lots of sexual partners, right? This is the future that Attali states. And it's basically the future that World Economic Forum says too. Attali is like, yeah, man, we're all going to be herded into these fucking cities like cattle. And when it comes down to it, the entire population is going to be in one of these cities, and there's going to just be a few of them that dot the planet, right? There's not going to be like little villages and shit. It's going to be detrimental or damn near impossible for you to even survive outside of one of these cities. And why would that be? Well, think about it. They want to get us in these cities because that's where the standardization of thought, belief, spirit, and your physical frame happens, right? This is why we already see it happening with sanctuary cities and just, New York, all these major metropolitan areas. There's a reason they all vote left. There's a reason they all have a uniform block voting system and ideology that they all share, right? So what happens when you get bunched together and things are miserable in a shithole that smells all day? Okay, oddly militaristic styles. Yeah. So other technocracy values. So world affairs will be headed and managed by experts in their respective fields. Now, of course, they'll have to have a proven expertise. So anyone that is not an expert in whatever field it might be will not have any say over the affairs and the management of mankind. It doesn't matter if there's a majority rule. It doesn't matter if there's a majority of people that say, hey, give that guy a chance. I like him. Let's see if he can do better. If he's not an expert, you have no role here, right? Kind of the same thing, what we're going through now, where if you're not an authoritative source, we may just simply remove your voice, right? Unless you have proven expertise, then we don't want to hear you speak. Howard Scott is just filled with really poignant quotes. Here's one of my favorites of his. Quote, "Those who create a civilization will eventually dominate it. Engineers and mechanics created the civilization, and they will end up dominating it eventually. What they're aiming at to do is, let me rephrase, sorry, my handwriting sucks. They wish to build a technological army of the functionally competent. They are building a technological army of the functionally competent." That's right, because you are non-functioning, because you're not an expert. You are not competent because you're not an expert. And in this future world, technocratic society, you have no place in a leadership position because you're not an expert. You have no say in this. To think you have anything to offer civilization or its management is absurd. And of course, according to Howard Scott, the man on your screen, or no, he's not on your screen anymore, there's no need for democracy. There's no need for democracy if the world is run like this. Democracy is an imperfect reflection of man's attempts to be precise in their selection of who will maintain integrity, morals, ethics, and a balanced behaved society. He said science is undebatable. There is no debating science, he says. There is no debating the precision of technology. There is no argument, is what he says. Hence, why we just skip the middleman. Democracy. Voting in candidates. Humans are imperfect. We have faults. Some of us are really smart. A lot of us are very dumb. We're prone to emotional whims and outbursts, and we're we're filled with little things that make us imperfect. But technology isn't. That's who should be running society with a scientific framework. And guys, like I said, that's H.G. Wells and that's Bertrand Russell right there on the impact of science on society. We need a scientifically managed government and world system. We need to collectivize the world, centralize the world, and manage it, all of it, with the precision of science. And why is that? I mean, easy to predict crowd movements and different complexities all over the world too, if we have it scientifically run and managed. And of course, Julian Huxley also predicted that this would come about, right? He said basically overpopulation is going to be one of the major issues that eventually ends up with our enslavement, because in order to combat overpopulation, what did he say would happen? The only way to combat overpopulation, one of the existential threats that the Club of Rome First Global Revolution, precursor to the World Economic Forum, said we need to start focusing on global threats. That's the only thing that's going to give us the global cooperation we need in order to install this framework. Hence Klaus Schwab ranting about global cooperation. I was going to add one more thing about that last part, but whatever. So, as I said earlier, there'd be a cabinet of around 100 of these experts. 100 experts for all of the citizens that would live in the technate, US and Canada, which is fucking crazy. And those 100 elite engineers, elite scientists, elite doctors, these elite experts, whomever they are, they would all collectively agree and select on a continental director. Now, the continental director would oversee the logistics and the operations of all 100 of the expert managers, as well as essentially the affairs of mankind, right? He would be the leader. And I think I said this earlier, but he also believed that, democracy allowed way too many incompetent people to be in charge, and we paid the price for that. Greed, corruption, self-serving behaviors, right? As I mentioned earlier, the idea of like just doing things to please your constituents, not because it'll actually help society or help your country, but because it'll help you. And what does it matter in the end if you have a term limit that you're 2 years away from, or whatever it might be, right? And, I do agree with that to an extent. Some radical change, maybe not radical, but I don't even need to say it, but obviously something needs to change. I don't quite know how that looks quite yet. I can see why technology being the answer would be favorable, but I'll tell you what, there is no enlightenment on the other side of the technological path, just slavery. And if you look into the history of technocracy, transhumanism, like you quickly learn that. You read the likes of Huxley, H.G. Wells, you could see how very bad this could become. Because as Huxley said, this is the final revolution. This is the revolution that's so comprehensive, so wide sweeping, and so severe as to be final, and yet we don't even see it or feel it or even detect it happening. The average person will be convinced to put handcuffs and shackles on themselves, enslave themselves. They won't even know they're doing it because of how proficient and advanced this technology is. They'll be boxed into mental boxes. They'll be tricked into believing certain things. They'll be convinced that to even hear an alternative narrative is directly damaging to their psyche, is directly a threat to public health. These are the means in which they will enslave themselves. And the entire time, they'll be the happiest population on the planet. Far happier than, say, you or I, right? If you want to know what slaves putting shackles on their own wrists and smiling looks like, just wait like 50 years. Education, health, sanitation, public safety, all of that would be run by experts chosen by their peers. So the doctors would vote for doctors, right? Teachers would vote for teachers. Police officers would vote for police officers, etc. Now, you're going to think this sounds familiar, at least it should. From Howard Scott himself and Technocracy Incorporated itself, all the way from the 1930s, what did they say? Governments are too slow, too inefficient, too lacking in expertise to solve hard problems. Boy, that sounds familiar. Wait a moment. Isn't that what the first Global Revolution book was about by Club of Rome? Didn't they literally say almost verbatim that governments are no longer feasible to combat the problems that we face in the modern world? It looks like the Club of Rome might have took some inspiration from this technocracy group. Now, I'm not going to pretend they took inspiration from this group specifically, but isn't it interesting, all the way back in the 1930s, which preceded the Club of Rome and the World Economic Forum by a long time, they're already saying we need to get rid of all that. Governments are too slow, inefficient. They're not going to solve the problems that now face us. The problems are now too big in an ever-connected world. Remember what H.G. Wells said, the abolition of distance is what is sealing our fate. Despite being ever more connected across the world, we've never been farther apart. What did Zbigniew Brzezinski say in Between Two Ages? America's role in the technotronic era. He said, with the advent of technology that connects us, we will increasingly feel disconnected and fragmented from one another. A lot of these same elements are being echoed over and over, and it's because of men and movements like this all the way back in those early days, the 1930s, the Fabian Socialists, the 1880s. It's like they're picking all of these different ideological pieces and putting them together in this framework that we then see rolled out in different forms and iterations, just not identically, right? So you see a little bit of technocracy in what Klaus is doing in the World Economic Forum. You see a little bit of, you know what I'm saying? It's like a hybrid system, a brand new system. It's not full fascism. It's not full communism. It's technological enslavement, essentially. So it is kind of fascism. It's just, can it be fascism if the people that are enslaved don't even know they're enslaved? Like, there is no fascism or authoritarianism or tyranny if the people being ruled don't even know that there is a tyrant, right? That's the whole point. And that's why perception control is so important, aka the spell casting, mental alchemy, the perception management. If you have the ability to change the perception of an individual, let alone the entirety of the globe, say as the head of a social media company like Twitter, well, you can make it so people don't see how things really are, right? You install them into this fake world where no tyrants exist. We're definitely not subjected to the will of some technological transhumanist fascist. Look the other way. Here's a dog video that the algorithm just suggested you, right? You could see how, Elon Musk might play a very convenient role. You would want, if you were someone like Howard Scott here with Technocracy Incorporated all the way back in the 30s, if you were to see what's happening now, this guy would be jumping up and down with joy to see that someone like Elon Musk, a devout transhumanist that checks all the boxes, is now head of the perception control narrative machine, the culture creator. He'd be jumping for joy. Remember, guys, hit the thumbs up for me, guys. Please, appreciate that. Appreciate that. So yes, governments are too slow and inefficient. We need the NGOs and think tanks and all those bad boys to, that aren't held down by term limits, self-serving greed, corruption, at the whim of like some whatever. We need something bigger than that. We need Klaus Schwab's the world. Get rid of self-serving governments, their corruption, their greed. People are sick of the inefficiency and constant left versus right bickering. Machine-like efficiency is appealing more and more to people. And this is an interesting point because I did hear a theory where, I forget exactly how it goes, but the idea that what they're trying to do is just make us so fucking sick and tired of the current leadership that the real bad guys, the real transhumanists, the people that will install this technological slavery framework across the globe, the beast grid system, right? Those people will essentially take the reins of power when we've hit a threshold of being so absolutely sick of the current system, the left versus right bickering, this idea that nothing ever changes, my vote doesn't matter because we will always be left with somebody like a Donald Trump or like a Joe Biden, neither of which have any of our best interests in mind. People are sick and tired, and perhaps it just makes you wonder. Back in the 30s, Technocracy Incorporated is saying people are already, all the way back then, sick and tired of that shit. Now, after a global pandemic and all the psyops from the past 6-7 years, the domestic violence, the riots, the protests, the hate, the disenfranchisement of young men, people dropping out of society at a higher and higher rate, fertility rates and testosterone levels are plummeting in Western civilization. We're tired. People are fucking done. They're tapping out. And the issue is when you tap out, it's because you don't have any energy left. So it's not like these people have the energy to rebuild or create a new system. The only thing that we can expect them to do, unfortunately, is adopt and support whomever comes closest to being a savior. And who's the savior going to be? It's going to be World Economic Forum, folks. It's going to be the Klaus Schwabs of the world. We're here to save you. We're not held back, held down, limited like those petty governments. See, look how quickly I fixed this. See, look how quickly I got rid of those predators on Twitter. See how easy that was? Oh, and by the way, I'm going to expose all the bad stuff that's been happening on Twitter forever. You see, trust me, look how quick I got it done. You see how efficient I am as opposed to the old world order leaders, right? So it's only fitting then, I want to open this. Give me one moment, guys. So like I said, one of the leaders of the Technocracy Incorporated movement was a guy named Joshua Haldeman. He was the guy that got arrested in 1940, and he faced 2 charges because being a member or a leader of the Technocracy Incorporated group, well, that was against the Defense of Canada Act, and they didn't like that. World War II was on the horizon, and they couldn't deal with any groups that were subversive and made people not want to fight or enlist or be drafted to fight for the freedom of the world, right? To fight fascism. Okay, we can't have that, so we arrest one of the leaders of Technocracy Incorporated named Josh Haldeman in 1940, right? And I guess he stayed the leader until 1941. Eventually, though, he became disillusioned with both the organization and the country, and he just kind of decided to get the fuck out of the country. What he once hoped would become the Technate, the combined countries of the US and Canada. Instead, he ended up packing up his young family and moving to start a new life in South Africa. And in June of 1971, Haldeman's daughter, Maeve, gave birth to his first grandson. And his first grandson's name is Elon Musk, right? So if you trace back the technocracy, the origins of the ideology, back to its roots in the 1930s, with the likes of Howard Scott and Josh Haldeman, the people who were maybe not the first, but very close to it, very early proponents of the very same system that we're up against now, technological enslavement, algorithmic suppression, constant cognitive warfare, information warfare, the inability to tell fact from fiction, the advent of the post-truth world because of technology. Think deep fake technology, eradicating the ability to see what's real, what's not, to determine what's real and what's not. In order to differentiate between fact and fiction, you will have to use technology to actually determine that, right? So in the future, I envision a world where you might be looking at a video clip, you don't know if it's real. You have to download another piece of software to even determine whether it's real or not. I'm shooting the shit here. So Elon Musk comes from a long line of technocrats and transhumanists. Is this surprising, though? I mean, come on, like, is this surprising to anybody? The man who fits and checks every box of the New World Order, every box of the Great Reset. Why are we... should any of us be surprised that he comes from a family of technocrats, of transhumanists? Let's see. Man, Elon Musk is good at memes. Elon Musk is good at shitposting. Dude, Elon Musk got rid of the predators on Twitter. Q confirmed Elon Musk is in control of Twitter. He's on our side. I mean, really? Is he, though? Because here's the thing. The World Economic Forum, their reset agenda, why carbon tax is crucial to curbing climate change. And remember, carbon tax, personal carbon allowances, are going to be wrapped up and bundled in with the smart city system. Smart city systems being ready to go for the time these urban sprawls increase, the cities get larger, megalopolises, as I said, right? Well, Elon Musk says it's high time there was a carbon tax. Okay, so he agrees with Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum on that. Universal basic income. That's a socialistic idea. The idea generally is to provide universal basic income as automation and machines take over many people's labor jobs. And without those jobs, mass unemployment, we don't want the misery to follow. That's a very dangerous thing. All those people losing jobs quickly, where do they derive meaning? How do they sustain themselves? Well, universal basic income. And once we get the UBI system rolled out, right, people kind of like that. We might socialize more sectors of our society, right? And this is why the WEF says 4 reasons cities should embrace universal basic income. And Elon says, as a reminder, I'm in favor of universal basic income. What about mRNA shots, right? How does he feel on that? 3 tactics to overcome COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy, says the WEF. But Elon says, to be clear, I do support the vax in general and COVID specifically, COVID vaccines specifically. The science, he says, is unequivocal. Completely unequivocal. What about transhumanism? WEF, would you let your employer implant a microchip in your hand? These workers have. How cool is that? Elon says, creating a neural lace is the thing that really matters for humanity to achieve symbiosis with machines, the merging of the digital with the physical, the internet of bodies. The early iterations of that merging of digital and physical is things like your true physical real identity being merged with your digital identity, such as an internet ID, right? That's the very beginning iterations of how these things will accumulate. And then, of course, what else criteria does he satisfy? One world government? Let's see. Medium.com published this article. In his discussion at the World Economic Forum, Elon Musk discussed how society needs to work together to create some kind of world government. He stated that this would be necessary to address the challenges currently posed by climate change and artificial intelligence. You couldn't get more perfect than that. Not only did Elon Musk, remember, the savior of free speech, guys, not only did he say, yeah, one world government's kind of the way to go on this one, he said that we need a one world government to combat climate change. What did I say before? The age of the existential threat, the types of threats that will never go away unless global cooperation is attained. And if you begin cooperating globally, the lines become blurred, borders become blurred, more blurred than they already are. The barriers of governments, national differences begin to blur and dissolve until we become more of a singular centralized system of operation across the globe, all in the name of combating existential threats that may or may not be threats. And that's what the first Global Revolution book said. They said something along those lines, where it's like it doesn't even necessarily have to be a threat. And remember, it's not just attacking one thing at a time. They said we need a simultaneous assault, coordinated globally, from every country. We need to attack all these things at the same time. We can't do just climate change. We have to attack pandemics and climate change at the same time. We have to attack overpopulation, climate change, and pandemics at the same time, right? All simultaneous. Full spectrum dominance on the globe and the environment. This is how these things are enacted, okay? Let's take a look at here. The Forum of Young Global Leaders. Interesting. Oh, wait. Really? Could it be? The Forum of Young Global Leaders. We know Young Global Leaders is a World Economic Forum group. Elon Musk says, now I'm going to buy Facebook and delete it. Haha. Now, the Young Global Leader honorees of 2008, Elon Musk, chairman, Tesla Motors. Isn't that interesting, guys?
In the 20th century, wireless technology integrated with the human body was nothing more than science fiction. But today,
note, by the way, that this is from the Rand Corporation YouTube channel, so I thought that was fitting.
Wi-Fi connected devices like heart rate monitors and sleep trackers have become common parts of American life. How has bionic technology evolved so quickly from science fiction to reality? And what could this Internet of Bodies mean for our lives moving forward? Rand researchers
eradication of the immutable essence of man, as well as the relentless rape of that essence,
are studying this phenomenon and what consumers and policymakers need to know as we veer into uncharted territory.
The Internet of Bodies, or IOB, is actually an ecosystem. It's a bunch of devices that are connected to the internet that contain software and that either collect personal health data about you or can alter the body's function. We think of the Internet of Bodies as this collection of all these devices, as well as
Juice over on YouTube says that I like the playlists, or I like your playlist. Remember, go to the my YouTube channel and hit the playlists tab, and I've got all the music that I use in the playlist. I mean, it's a massive playlist, 200 songs or so, but all the music I use is in there. Click the Project Music playlist on the playlist tab of the Memory Hold 5.0 YouTube channel.
All the data that the devices are gathering about you. And in healthcare, it's Internet of Bodies has been around for quite a while. With the advent of the internet, it makes a lot of sense to connect your pacemaker to the internet so that your doctor can be automatically notified if something weird happens, if there's an anomaly.
So this is positive, right? Make no mistake, mRNA, the mRNA revolution and the Internet of Bodies revolution and implantable nanotechnology revolution is a gigantic benefit, a positive, right? If used correctly, just like any technology, right? That's the key, just like any technology. But it can be used for evil, just like anything else, right? That's the trick. And with technology, here's the issue with technology. Democracy is by default, this is what the current trend tells us, democracy by default is outpaced by technology. Because the powerhouses, the leaders of democracy, do not have access to the same technology that these private organizations do, such as big tech companies, Silicon Valley, social media companies like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Meta, right? So as technology advances to a certain point, right? So democracy is stable for a while. Representative government, the majority vote, elects their leaders, right? You don't like the leaders, you're out of there. The public has spoken. That's going to be a phrase that's phased out quite quickly, because what happens is technology ends up surpassing, in terms of power, reach, and influence, that of the democratically elected leader. So what do we end up seeing? We end up seeing an informal gravitation of democratic leadership gravitating towards technocrats, right? The people that are in charge of the perception management, the people in charge of our discourse online, which we are increasingly reliant upon. Most of our daily lives are spent on the internet. It dictates what we see, what we believe, what we think, what we feel, dictates how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about others, what should be, what shouldn't be. Naturally, how can any democratically elected candidate keep up with that? And without them really knowing that they're doing it, they become reliant on these technologies and the people that wield them. Or rather, they become reliant on these spells and the people that cast them, the people that hold the wands. But there's only a few people with wands, right? Joe Biden doesn't have a wand. Elon Musk has a wand. Jack Dorsey previously had a wand. Mark Zuckerberg has a wand. Why do you think that the Department of Homeland Security and FBI are crawling to Twitter saying, I need access. Can I please have access? Please, can you give me access? We need to protect the elections. Hey, technology guy, can I have access to your stuff to make sure that democracy isn't hurt? That's all the evidence you need to see. Who's really wearing the pants here? Who's really in charge of who? Technology runs the government as time and technology become more advanced. And that's clear. All you have to do, just basic refresher, let's go to the Technocracy webpage. Let's go to the history of the term. I mean, the history of technocracy goes all the way back to Plato, really. The person credited with the invention of the term, the coining of the term, William Henry Smith. He was an engineer in California. He's usually credited with it back in 1919, and he described a technocracy as the rule of the people made effective through the agency of their servants, the scientists, and the engineers. In the 1930s, this is where we have the creation of the technocracy movement, Technocracy Incorporated, by Howard Scott. So in the 1930s, Howard Scott comes onto the scene, creates Technocracy Incorporated, and creates, therefore, the technocracy movement that he founded. By that point in time, it came to mean, quote, government by technical decision-making. using an energy metric of value. Scott, the founder of Technocracy Incorporated, proposed that money be replaced by energy certificates, denominated in units such as joules, equivalent in total amount to an appropriate national net energy budget. Like I said, the affairs of man will be entirely managed by technology to the point where your currency is energy certificates, right? And then, of course, those energy certificates distributed equally among the North American population, which again isn't North America, or yeah, it is North American because it's the technate, the combination of Canada and US. This is the future without sovereign nation states. Nationalism only serves to hold back the manifestation of the greater good, the vision of the ultimate form of potential that human beings can reach. But we can't do it alone. We must do it through the use and utilization of technology. Just like ancient humans reach their full potential by the usage of tools to combat Mother Nature and eventually triumph over her, right? We're going to use tools that we find in the environment to triumph over man himself. Test tube babies, CRISPR technology, gene editing, the eradication of unpleasant traits, unpleasant genes, the eradication of diseases and certain types of illnesses, the eradication of non-ideal behavior traits. The global standardization of man is then followed by the global sterilization of his life experience. There is in common usage found the derivative term technocrat. The word technocrat can refer to someone exercising governmental authority because of their knowledge, right? A member of the powerful technical elite would be the way you use it in the sentence. So anyway, the precursors to all this, before the term technocracy was even coined, right? You know, the idea of technology having any role in governance, right, by technical experts. People like Henry de Saint-Simon, this was expressed by the belief in state ownership over the economy, with the state's function being transformed from pure philosophical rule over men into a scientific administration of things and a direction of production processes under scientific management. So that's the key at the end there, a direction of production processes under scientific management. What did I say earlier, right? Envision a centralized food system, technology that monitors resource levels in lifetime, population levels in lifetime, birth rates, death rates in lifetime, and all sorts of things in lifetime. Well, what happens is the centralization of this technology in the small elite managerial group tasked with overseeing this technology and therefore the affairs of all of mankind, right? The production processes, whether it's food, whether it's physical industry, city building, whatever, right? All of those processes will be put under scientific management. And because we're at the dawn of predictive technology, you're going to be able to read this data in live time, take it in, compute it, and then dish out a preferable result. Okay, I'll give you an example. For smart cities, they're talking about, and this is a small result on the micro level, smart cities, they're talking about users walking through the city directly connecting to the city itself. So you have your phone on you. Your location is tracked, your GPS data is tracked, right? The things you post, your communications are tracked, everything is tracked, right? How do you think they create the ability for you to know whether traffic is coming up or not when you use Google Maps or Apple Maps, right? Well, it's because everyone in front of you in the vehicles on the highway have a cell phone on them. And if decentralized technological system monitoring the movement, the GPS of those phones, and realize, hey, none of the phones on those highways are moving. They're all stationary. Well, that means there's traffic, right? So now imagine if there's a smart city system with a centralized AI that's set to manage the affairs of all of that city based on user data, right? Well, if all of a sudden there's a small sidewalk path, let's say, right? And it's consistently red with heavy foot traffic all day, right? You're monitoring the foot traffic of all citizens and their location data and their posts, their beliefs, their opinions, and their emotions all in live time. The city itself is going to compensate for that. Hey, how do we fix the heavy foot traffic in that area? That's congestion. And the smart city will develop a resolution to that, AKA, we're going to flag that region of the city, that sidewalk, as having to be expanded, right? So foot traffic can move more smoothly. Or another example would be a city detecting or changing the rates in which stoplights change from red to yellow to green based on the level of congestion vehicle traffic there without human intervention. The machines that are running the city, the smart city, will detect this information. Hey, there's no traffic there. Why is the red light still set to sit there as red for fucking 40 seconds? Let's change that to green. The machines do that for us, all based on your data, aka all the way back in the day, we have this guy saying production processes will be under scientific management, okay? St. Simon's vision of industrial society, a vision of pure technocracy, was a system of planning and rational order in which society would specify its needs and organize the factors of production to achieve them. This is really interesting. Alexander Bogdanov, a Russian scientist and social theorist, also anticipated a conception of technocratic processes. Both Bogdanov's fiction and his political writings, which were highly influential, suggest that he expected a coming revolution against capitalism to lead to a technocratic society. From 1913 to 1922, Bogdanov immersed himself in writing a lengthy philosophical treatise of original ideas. He basically anticipated many basic ideas of systems analysis, later explored by cybernetics. In Technology, one of his works, Bogdanov proposed unifying all social, biological, and physical sciences by considering them as systems of relationships and seeking organizational principles that underlie all systems. The great congeal, the great combining, the great merging of all systems that were formerly separate are now together. And look at this. Arguably, the Platonic idea of philosopher kings represents a sort of technocracy, right? Plato said that the ideal civilization or society is one in which the state is run by those with specialist knowledge, and in this case, knowledge of the good rather than scientific knowledge. The Platonic claim is that those who best understand goodness should be empowered to lead the state, as they would lead it toward the path of happiness. Whilst knowledge of the good differs from knowledge of science, rulers are here appointed based on a certain grasp of technical skill rather than democratic mandates. So it's interesting to look back on, like Plato's thoughts on. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on that, but so we see technocracy has been an idea as far back as then. It's just changed form over time. Hence why we see a combination of all these various ideas where you get a little bit of fascism, a little bit of authoritarianism, a little bit of democracy, a little bit of all this, all put into one, right? A little bit of communism. And then we'll end it sort of on this. John G. Gunnell presciently writes in one of his books about technocracy, quote, "Politics is increasingly subject to the influence of technological change, with specific reference to the advent of the long boom and the genesis of the internet following the 1973 recession. Gunnell goes on to add 3 levels of analysis that delineate technology's political influence. Number 1, political power tends to gravitate towards technological elites. What did I just say? Technology outpaces democratically elected individuals and outpaces them in power and influence. Therefore, it becomes the reverse. Technology doesn't rely on democracy. Democracy relies on technology. You become the FBI begging to Twitter on their knees, please let us have access to your data. Should be the other way around, right? But no, technology makes everyone else their bitch. Nobody makes technology their bitch. Number 2, technology has become autonomous, and thus it becomes impenetrable by political structures. And number 3, technology and science constitute a new legitimizing ideology, as well as triumphing over tribalism, nationalism, the crusading spirit of religion, bigotry, censorship, racism, persecution, immigration, so on, so forth. Gunnell continues to foretell technology's infiltration of political processes and suggests that the entanglement of the two will inevitably produce power concentrations around those with advanced technological training, namely the technocrats. So, political power tends to gravitate towards technological elites because technology outpaces democracy and politicians and man-made governments in terms of power and influence. And what ends up happening inevitably is that it ends up producing power concentrations around those with advanced technological training, which is, of course, the technocrats. And what type of world are we living in right now, all those years later after those predictions? A world where technology and government is increasingly intertwined. And now at the head of Twitter, the digital marketplace of ideas, the digital town square where all are free to speak. Well, so long as Elon Musk, the transhumanist that wants to implant brain chips in you, remember, that's the only way to move forward in this information environment, according to Elon Musk, is we got to put a brain chip in your head to make things more efficient, to access information quicker, to prevent bad ideas from entering your head or rotten information, misinformation, false information. Elon Musk is kind of like marketing this Neuralink thing as digital hygiene of the future, when in reality, it's an enslavement system. So when you tell me that Elon Musk is the bastion of free speech, it just tells me that you need to familiarize yourself with the history of transhumanism and technocracy, and in my opinion, the inevitability of it from coming out. So I appreciate you all for hanging out with me today here this evening, Sunday, December 18th, 2022. Please like this video, hit the thumbs up on your way out. If you wish to support the show, you can do so. You can do so by sharing this video. You can also do so by hitting me up monetarily. Throw me a tip if you want. You got oil money, you got the Lambo, you got the Ferrari. You're just made of money. You like to burn it sometimes for fun. You like to bury it, dig it up, see how many dollar bills survived. None? No big deal. I got infinite money. If you're one of those people, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, it's all there. Consider making a free account on Rockfin on the alt platforms. Not every video I ever make gets uploaded to YouTube. In fact, only 20% of them do. If you catch this on YouTube, it might be gone by tomorrow. Whether it's because of me playing it safe or Susan at YouTube saying, fuck you, take that shit down. It might be. You want to get on Rockfin, you want to get on BitChute. Right now, I'd say Rockfin. There's a bit of a delay in me getting up videos on BitChute. But guys, thank you so much for hanging. We'll continue to monitor the unfolding of the technocracy, of course, here on this channel. So bookmark the link tree, links in the description. I'll see you next time.
The most power over the other entities, the other humans. If that gets eliminated, if we merge with artificial intelligence, or we become some sort of new version of artificial intelligence, the way I've described it in the past is like that we are the electronic caterpillar that becomes the butterfly, and we don't even know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We're just in the middle of like making this cocoon. Like we just got to make the cocoon. We're busy making the cocoon. Need an iPhone 14, making the cocoon. I need a new Tesla.
We are nothing but the reproductive organs of technology, according to Joe Rogan. Our sole purpose to exist on this planet as biological, organic, carbon-based life forms is to serve as the reproductive organs of a technology that we have no real comprehensive understanding of. But nonetheless, our urge to continuously innovate, we're going to innovate ourselves into slavery, but not in Joe's mind. According to Joe Rogan, he says that we should merge with the machines. He's friends with Elon Musk. Could it be that a man was allowed to have such a large platform to, I don't know, promote such ideas as that? And we see that Joe's inner circle has got some power now. Elon, his boys up on Twitter, running the helm of Twitter, the culture creator. And we got Matt Taibbi. He likes Joe Rogan, buddies with him. He's breaking the Twitter files. It's all making sense.
Making the cocoon, and that all that innovation, it all leads to exponentially more powerful innovation, exponentially more powerful technology. That's ultimately the end game is artificial life and the ability to transcend space and time, and just unimaginable technological power. And I don't think that's possible unless we get rid of emotions, sexual desire, lust, greed, all those things, which are human things.
Right. None of that's going to happen unless we get rid of those pesky things. Nothing good, no advancement's going to happen unless we get rid of those pesky human things. Emotions, sexual desires, no thoughts. Wouldn't that just be terrible? A world with emotions and sexual desires? I fucking hate that shit. I hate that shit, dude. I hate human desires, bro.
Basil stepping back in. 2 for 2. 21 gun salute. We got the Manchester Massive. New Zealand crew lock. Every week we got the Cat Dilla. Sent for the Driller Killer.